The environment in which we find ourselves is possibly better summed up by the poet Bradley Trevor Greaves. He says, "For endangered animals, we are both their greatest enemy and their only hope. These wonderful creatures will not argue their case. They will not put up a fight. They will not beg for reprieve. They will not say goodbye. They will not cry out. They will just vanish. And after they're gone, there will be silence. There will be stillness, and there will be empty places. And nothing you can do will change that. Nothing you can do will bring that back." It's a staggering thought when we consider the rate of extinction that we're experiencing at the moment. More and more species are being driven to the brink of extinction. And we've spent quite a lot of time thinking about that as a zoo. What is our role? How do we help? How do we participate in trying to make sure that doesn't happen? And we've identified two ways that we can make a huge difference. There's two core skills that we have that are unique within a conservation framework. The first is that we've been looking after animals for a very long time. Melbourne Zoo's been looking after animals for 150 years. And over that time, we've learned a lot about what animals need, about how we can look after them in human care. And we employ a lot of dedicated staff with incredible skills around looking after animals. The second core strength we have is that we put people and animals close together. We enable connections to be formed between people and animals that enables people to care. And we see about 2 million people a year come through the gates of our 3 campuses. Over and above that, we see close on 2 million people online. So we have an enormous reach in terms of people we can talk to. And so we have these two amazing core skills. And the questions we've been grappling with, and we hope we have some answers, if not all of them, is how do we use these two core skills as we look at species extinction? And the reason we care so strongly about it is we've been involved with it very firsthand. This little bat, some of you will know what it is. It's a Christmas Island pipistrelle, a very small insectivorous bat living fairly obviously on Christmas Island. The Christmas Island pipistrelle got into trouble because of an invasive pest, the crazy yellow ant, which would overrun their habitat and literally just eat them as they came into roost. And so scientists had been plotting the demise of the species. They had a little graph that showed if you plotted a line through the points of every year where they plotted the population, that it would go extinct in 2009. That would be the point at which the line just went right through the x-axis. And so a team was put together to go to Christmas Island to try and save the Christmas Island pipistrelle. They thought there would be 20 left when we got there. We put a team on the ground on Christmas Island in August 2009. The first thing they did was put measuring devices, little recording devices, all over the known habitat of the Christmas Island pipistrelle. And for 3 nights, we recorded a single male bat, 1. They tried to catch him, but they didn't succeed. And I think the team on the ground looked at each other and said, we hope we don't succeed, because what will we do with 1 single male bat? After the 3rd night, we never heard him again. They carried on recording for another 5 weeks. As far as we know, the species is now extinct. I have a recording dated the 26th of August 2009, which is a recording from the last day this bat ever flew. We came back from that exercise and said, that's terrible. We never want to do that again. We never want to be the organization that gets called on to document the extinction of a species. So what is it we can do with those skills that I identified earlier that makes sure that never happens again? And so we as Zoos Victoria are committed to fighting extinction. And instead of starting far away and in distant places where we do work, we're committed to fighting extinction here in Victoria. And we've made a promise that no terrestrial vertebrate species will go extinct in Victoria on our watch. We will do whatever it takes to save them. So I went back to the experts in my team, the scientists, and said, those little graphs you have where you think a species is going to go extinct, pull them out. Let's have a look at them. What are we talking about if we make this kind of commitment? How many species are there here in our backyard in Victoria that we know will go extinct if we do nothing? And they came back with a staggering number. They came back with 16 species, where we're down to numbers as low as 50 individuals left in the wild, where we know that if we do nothing, they'll go extinct. We added to those 16 species 4 other Australian species that live down here in the south and eastern side of Australia. So we have our top 20 priority species that we're working with. And I want to share a little bit because everyone always accuses us of zoos when we say we're going to save a species. They go, oh yeah, you'll save the cute cuddly ones, the big charismatics. So I'm going to show you a few that aren't quite so cute and cuddly. This is a Lord Howe stick insect and one of the species we're working with. They live on Lord Howe Island and they were perfectly adapted from an environment which only experienced aerial predation. When they're little, they're small and green and out in the day. At night, they grow. They become quite large. They call them walking cigars because they look like a cigar with legs. And these guys were living quite successfully, camouflaged at night, moving around bushes, until boats arrived at Lord Howe Island and rats came ashore and they had no defense against ground-based predation and were eaten out of existence. They were declared extinct. And only in the early 2000s, a group of climbers who were climbing off Ball's Pyramid, which is a very inhospitable chunk of rock sticking straight out of the ocean, found a group of 8 of these animals clinging to existence on a bush on the side of the pyramid. They brought them back to Melbourne, and they brought them to the Melbourne Zoo because of our expertise in the butterfly house, being able to look after invertebrates. That group, one of them was a gravid female. She had eggs. They nurtured them. They kept them alive. And we're now at the point that at any given time we have 500 or 600 adults in our collection and 15,000 eggs. We have the species back on track. We're working with schools. The schools are now looking after these animals. So instead of looking after ordinary stick insects, they look after threatened Lord Howe stick insects. We've just sent populations, one to Budapest and one to San Diego Zoo, so that we don't have all our eggs in one basket. We spread the risk right around the world. And the guys from Budapest are fantastic. Vladimir, who doesn't have great English, is dancing with happiness because one of his eggs hatched. But we're excited that this population is now on a point where we have a lot of animals in care, and we're working with the authorities to look at how we can work with rat extermination on Lord Howe and a reintroduction program of taking Lord Howe stick insects back into the wild on Lord Howe. The next guy is possibly even less attractive, and that would be one of my favorites, the bawbaw frog. We give you a lot of clues as to where these come from. There's no prizes here. They come from Mount Bawbaw. It's a small frog. They burrow under the moss during different times of the year. They're very hard to find. The egg mass, you can see at the bottom, the tadpoles are white. They spend most of their life pretending to be dead. So floating upside down, pale white, giving the keepers quite a heart attack. They said every day you go in and think you've lost them all overnight, and then they start moving and you think you're all right again. The tadpoles hatch out of this egg mass. They don't free swim at all. When they hatch out, they're only 5 millimeters big. It's a very tiny frog that comes out. And their hunting strategy is that they lie on their backs in the mud, again playing dead, and they wait for something to walk over their hand. And when something walks over their hand, they stick it in their mouth. That's their hunting strategy. And we're wondering why they're in trouble. They're a challenging species. And for the keepers, the challenge was, what do you grow that is small enough that it will walk over the hand of a frog that's only 5 millimeters big and is still active at 3 degrees because the bug has to walk? And so we've had enormous challenges in that. This amazing, talented team have worked that out. They've been doing incredibly well this season trying to understand what it takes to hold and hatch and grow bawbaw frogs. And next year we will be back on Mount Bawbaw collecting another egg mass. This species only has 50 left in the wild. So if we can find a way that we can head start them to the adult stage, we'll be able to make a massive improvement on the likelihood of success of the species. And the final one, you'll excuse me, is cute and cuddly, and that's the mountain pygmy possum. They're adorable. They're tiny. They also are the only hibernating marsupial. So they go into hibernation every year. Just around this time, they're now fast asleep. They drop their body temperature to 2 degrees and hibernate through winter. They have one of the best life cycles I've ever heard of, and ladies, you'll appreciate this with me. They eat all summer. They put on twice their weight by the end of summer. They're actually quite round at that point. They then go into hibernation and lose all that weight and wake up in summer, just absolutely in spring, they wake up in perfect peak condition. Imagine every night you could go to sleep and wake up trimmer than you went to bed. What a great story. And so these little guys, they're found on Mount Hotham and Mount Buller. We've been working with authorities and DSC and with some of the agencies up on the mountain in terms of ensuring that there are procedures and protocols to hold and breed them. We've done that successfully for 4 years. We're now in a phase of revamping the program, and we'll be looking at a breed for release program. While we work with them, what we also did through this project was look at hybridizing animals from the two mountains. Obviously in nature they can't get from the one mountain to the other. So we were able in controlled environment to bring the two populations together, to breed them and to show that the second generation were still fertile. So we've been able to show that there was low risk of introducing the two different subspecies and making sure that they would still have a future. So another amazing animal we work with. But this brings me to the second half of what we do and some of the other work we do. Because while I can tell you about all these 20 species and how amazing they are, most people before they came into the room today didn't even know they existed. You don't know all about them. And so we're now embarking on a campaign called Love Your Locals, where we will be introducing our visitors and the people of Melbourne and Victoria to these 20 species in ways that are innovative and new. So you'll find them on mint tins, you'll find them on graffiti and AC/DC lane. We're going to use all the different communication tools at our wherewithal to introduce you to them so you also fall in love with them, so you also care about their survival in the wild. And over these school holidays, we have programs that will introduce people to lead-beater possums and eastern barred bandicoots, where kids will get involved and get excited. Because the journey we're on is to take you from someone who loves animals to someone who thinks about it, who understands what the challenges are, and then is empowered to act. And that's a second big part of what we're doing, is what we call community conservation, where we share with you the stories of the threats to animals in the wild and help you take the actions that will help them survive. And we work on projects as diverse as a recycling of mobile phones to save gorillas, saving the gorillas by eliminating the need for ingredient coltan, which is mined in the area, calling for the labeling of palm oil so people have choices when they consume whether or not they contribute to the destruction of forests or whether they're able to take decisions that help to save animals in the wild. Beads for Wildlife. Through our shops, we're selling beadwork, which then helps a community in Kenya save their wildlife. This program has enabled us to sell over $400,000 worth of beads, which sends back about $260,000 to that community. If it was just done as charity, it would always be under threat. This is a respectful trade partnership, which we are excited to keep supporting. And then one that we get close to home is Seal the Loop, where we use recycled plastic to build tangler bins. The tangler bins are all around Port Phillip Bay, so fishermen can throw their fishing line into a bin and stop it tangling with the wildlife in the bay. So a very direct, not only does your bottle not end up in the bay as pollution, your bottle contributes to removing other threats to wildlife. And then the final one was where we had a lot of fun, was Wipe for Wildlife. We decided to try a campaign that wasn't serious and academic, but engaged with 10-year-old boys around using recycled toilet paper. So that's toilet paper made from recycled toilet paper. You don't actually have to recycle the toilet paper. And this campaign was all fun. We had an action hero who talks to children about toilets and about toilet paper. They loved it. Every single one of these campaigns, we work with the university in terms of understanding what is the behavior change and measuring the outcomes afterwards. We were able to show with Wife for Wildlife that people who weren't buying recycled toilet paper, after one visit to Healesville Sanctuary, after meeting Crapman, after seeing the bird show, after hearing the message, 30% switched and stayed switched. In behavior change, this is legend. This is what we can only hope to achieve. So an incredibly exciting campaign that's done very well. So what we've learned through all these campaigns and what we'll be applying to the fighting extinction and the zero extinction of terrestrial vertebrate species in Victoria is that we know when you make that connection with an animal, when you get that feeling that this animal is important, you will do what it takes to help save it. And we believe we can play very strongly in the space. Over and above which, we're involved in 6 international programs where we work to save habitat, be it with the Philippine crocodiles in the Philippines, clearly, or in Cambodia, where we're involved with researching and documenting the species in the Cardamom Mountains. We also work in Africa and in parts of Asia with animals like orangutans. So not only do we have a community conservation campaign, we can also support people in the field that are doing amazing work there. We also do detailed amount of research, and at any given time we're involved in about 50 to 60 research projects with many of the universities around Melbourne. We have projects like with the helmeted honeyeaters. What does it take to improve their likelihood of success in the wild? Within our collection, we also work on how we can improve the welfare of our animals, and we do disease surveillance on wild populations in and around Melbourne. So research is an important part of what we do. So is fighting extinction all we do in zoos? Well, clearly not. And the reason that we are able to do this, or if we are wanting to fight extinction, we have to make sure that we get some of the building blocks right as well, because we will have no credibility if we don't do that. So over and above the work we're doing around conservation and fighting extinction, we also have to run 3 very good zoos, because that's the base from which we work. The first part is that we have to attract people out to the zoos. Often people who want to be critical of zoos will say, but of course you're about entertainment or tourism. Yes, we are. Because the only way we can share these messages is if we provide opportunities and experiences that people are open to, that people are willing to come out and experience and then learn the serious messages underlying that. So that when we do Night Zoo, we talk about servals and what you can do, but more about servals and their challenges, but more importantly, we talk about cats in your backyard and the things you can do as a responsible cat owner to protect native wildlife. And we talk about birds at Healesville and teach you how to be a keeper yourself at Melbourne Zoo. So it's really important we still run good zoos with clean toilets and great attractions. The second thing we absolutely have to get right is animal welfare. Some of our animals will live very long time. Our little elephants will live 70 years. And if we don't get the animal welfare right, we have no basis from which to talk about fighting extinction. And so we take animal welfare incredibly seriously. Online we have an animal welfare code that spells out our commitment to the welfare of the animals in our collection. We also do an enormous amount of work constantly upskilling our staff with the latest knowledge and the best techniques available so we can deliver that. And then finally, we have to be sustainable. It's no good talking to everyone else about what they're doing that destroys the environment. We need to ensure that we don't do that either. And so we committed to being carbon neutral by 2012, which is this year. And by the end of this year, we will have offset all of our carbon footprint, and we will continue to do that going forward. We're in the process of being accredited for ISO 14001. All of the toilet paper at all of our zoos is recycled toilet paper, so we're consistent in what we've asked others to do, we will do ourselves. So that's where we are as Zoos Victoria. I'm often asked what keeps me awake at night, and some of you might think it's those guys. Many of you would think it's things like the lions aren't where they're supposed to be when we get in the next morning, but it's not. The thing that worries me most and would sadden me most if we don't get it right is that one day, as the CEO of Zoos Victoria, it would be my job to euthanize the last Tasmanian devil in the country. That if we get this wrong and the facial tumor destroys this population of animals, it will be my job to know when that's done. And like we recorded the extinction of the Christmas Island pipistrelle, we'll record the extinction of these nasty, feisty, tough little guys. And they deserve better. What gives me hope is that I work with an amazing group of people. And if anybody is committed, as we are, to making sure that never happens, we work as part of a survival group, a recovery program, which is committed to holding 2,000 Tasmanian devils on the mainland. We have over 90 disease-free animals at Healesville Sanctuary. We are committed to making sure that doesn't happen. Not for devils, not for insects, and not for frogs. And I think what gives me hope is better summed up again in the words of Bradley Trevor Greaves. And he says, anyone who has seen a sunrise, climbed a tree, smelled a rose, held a kitten, or listened to a whale's haunting love song, knows deep in their bones just how amazing this planet really is. To preserve our home and the priceless creatures that dwell within it, You only need to see the world as it is and have a vision of how it could be. Then hold fast to this vision. Let it guide your steps, your voice, and your heart. If you can do that, there will be hope, there will be beauty, there will be joy, and there will be life on earth. And those of us who live in Victoria will hear the snarls of Tasmanian devils. Thank you very much for your time.